So, Lucas, who do you think played the Punisher best?
I mean, I think it's just got to be John Bernthal.
No, it's the only guy who's played him well. So far away, Lucas, as you often do, would you like to let the lovely audience at home know what the topic of today's Wiki Weekends is?
Of course, yeah. So today we are going to be going through the wiki page for Frank Castle.
Yes, aka The Punisher, and we're referring specifically to the Marvel Wiki, a link to which you guys can find below. So we'll start, as we often do, with the biographical information of the hero being discussed, or anti-hero in this case. Frank Castle, Earth 616. Real name, Frank G. Castle, legally changed from Francis Castiglione. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the backstory there is that Frank Castle changed his name from Frank Castiglione to serve another tour in Vietnam. So he changed his name to go back to war. And there's a great bit where one of the crime families he fights all the time, the Nucci's. It's like, but Frank, you're Italian too. And he's like, no, fuck you. Current alias, The Punisher. Aliases, Big Boy, Big Nothing, Big Shoulders. Starting to see a theme here. Captain America, Charles Fort, Cliff Calidor, Francis Stronghold, Frank Hutt, Frankie Boy, Frank Rook, Frank Tower, Frankie Villa, Fred D'Amato. I'm getting the idea as well that Frank Castle is really unimaginative when coming up with criminal aliases. Because they're all just some variation of Frank or Francis with another name at the end. James Maxwell, John Conway, John Smith, Johnny Tower, Little Hunter, Mr. Hirschloss, Mr. Mann, Mr. Smith, Mr. Villa, Prisoner 616, Sad Princess 14, used to catfish a paedophile. Fucking hell, Frank, calm down. Skull Chest, Meat Shell, Skullface Guy, Ted Bishop, Tiny Hunter, Tiny Monkey. Editorial names, Frank and Castle. Oh yeah, because Frank Castle was a Frankenstein's monster for a little bit. That sounds stupid, and it was, and the only reason they did that is to de-age him, because they realised, Frank Castle, for people who don't know, is one of the few characters in Marvel who hasn't been adjusted with the sliding time scale. So he's still a veteran of the Vietnam War, which is difficult to explain why he's this like 60-year-old man still fighting on par with hardened criminals. It's like, oh yeah, he became a Frankenstein's monster and then got rebuilt and reborn as a younger man. It's like, oh god damn it. Yeah, that's how they do. And then relatives, we don't need to go through any of these because they're all dead. Affiliations, formerly Hydra, wait what? United States Marine Corps, Secret Defenders, Marvel Knights, Heroes for Hire, the Gerassi crime family, the Secret Avengers, Code Red, Legion of Monsters, and Thunderbolts, under the leadership of Red Hulk. And his base of operations is mobile, but it's usually New York. Because Frank Castle travels. Crime's everywhere, so the Punisher must also be everywhere. And status, identity, public identity. Yeah, that's something I like about Frank Castle, is that everyone knows who he is, and he doesn't give a shit. It's like, what are you really going to do? Every member of my family is dead. There's no way to get to me beyond walking through my front door, and my front door's got a grenade on it, so fuck you. Citizenship, American. Marital status, widowed. Aww. Occupation, vigilante, formerly a US Marine officer. Education, extensive military training, partial priesthood training.
Priesthood training?
Apparently so.
That's not what I expected to hear.
Characteristics, male, 6'3", 225 pounds, blue eyes, black hair, and unusual features a large skull motif carved into his torso. So at some point in the comics, someone must have carved that skull into his chest. Or maybe he did it himself, because he's like, weird like that. But Lucas, before we continue, just thoughts on the Punisher.
He's just very cool in that stereotypical anti-hero way, isn't he?
He is, yeah, and he's a character that I like, but don't like talking about how much I like, because of the amount of weird right-wing nuts who've just taken his logo and use it for their own.
Yeah.
Even though the Punisher fucking hates that kind of shit, and I believe a writer of a Punisher comic put a plot line in of weird right-wing nut jobs using his logo, and him just shooting them like, no, fuck you. You do not stand for what I stand for, please shut up, and then people still use it. He's like Rorschach in that way of, you're not supposed to like this character. You can empathise with him, you can enjoy his stories, but you're not supposed to like the character himself. He's a fucking monster. Yeah. And he admits that. That was one of the greatest quotes from the character is, there's one bullet left and I'm saving it for myself. Or something to that effect. Of he knows that what he is irredeemable. So when all crime is done, he will shoot himself. And I think there's even one comic where he does that.
Oh, wow.
I think it's like Old Man Frank or something like that, where it's the end of the world, and he goes and finds a bunch of rich people hiding underground, kills them all, then walks outside and kills himself.
Fucking hell.
Ending the human race. Do you know what? If there's no human race, there's no crime. I respect it. So personality, believe it or not, Frank does have one. Frank Castle is a vigilante anti-hero who employs murder, kidnapping, extortion, coercion, threats of violence, torture, and other things in his battle against crime. His brutal nature and willingness to kill has made him one of, if not the most, dangerous men alive. But I can believe, though, when they say he's one of the most dangerous men alive, because unlike every other person in the Marvel Universe, he will just shoot you. Power grid, people don't know. A rating of 1 to 7, 7 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and 7 being nigh godlike in that regard. And for Frank Castle, everything's a 3 or a 2, with the exception of fighting skills, which are a 6, putting him on par with some of the greatest fighters in the Marvel Universe. Which, yeah, again, especially when he's willing to incorporate just shooting people into his fighting style. Yeah, so powers. As the Punisher, he has no superhuman powers, although Nick Fury's intel classified the Punisher as being a power level 6 or greater due to his fighting skills, his weaponry, and his use of lethal force. The Punisher's resurrection by a Grigori named Gadriel imbued him with divine essence, enough to grant him a number of angelic qualities such as biological immortality, accelerated healing, and a sixth sense for the supernatural, and a dream-based precognition. Castle was also given access to a hammer space portal to heaven, which he typically used to produce special angel firearms.
What the fuck?
Lucas, comic books, mate, comic books. These powers were removed when Frank wouldn't work for Heaven. He's so committed to being a lone wolf, he wouldn't even work for Heaven. It's like, Frank, we will let you punish the guilty as much as you want and even make you immortal so you can do it forever. He's like, nah. While he was the Franken-Castle, Castle had superhuman strength to an unknown degree. Castle once had a bloodstone fragment, and I don't care what that is. I just know it sounds cool, which enhanced him in currently unknown ways. It is also giving him some degree of a healing factor. Yeah, so that's like they just did all that to de-age him. It's like, yeah, I get it, you want to keep this character, but when you have to go to lengths that convoluted to de-age a character, maybe retire them. Abilities, and I love the picture that they put at the top of this, because it's Frank Castle being beaten up by a robot that he made. This is something we talked about in a video before, where Frank Castle made a robot that punches him in the stomach, so that he can learn to take a punch without wincing to make criminals more scared of him.
That is terrifying.
It is, yeah. Like, imagine you land a solid blow on Frank Castle and he looks and goes, is that all you've got? Just does the Vegeta and like, that's it. Do you like the face turn where Vegeta gets punched and then turns his face around into the fist? So abilities, maximum human conditioning. I like that, maximum. The Punisher is in peak physical condition through his rigorous training and exercise regimes. He's developed levels of strength, speed, endurance, reflexes, healing, longevity, metabolism, and immune system efficiency near the absolute limits of human capability. Which for people who don't remember our Captain America video is basically the description of what Captain America is. Peak human endurance. Castle's endurance is unbelievably high, it actually says that. He frequently performs surgery on himself without pain medication.
Oh, fucking hell.
Master martial artist. Castle is a thoroughly seasoned veteran in multiple forms of armed and unarmed combat. Specifically, he is highly adept in American-style CQC, so solid snakes, fighting style of choice, ninjutsu, Shorin Ryu karate, Hawa Rangdo, Chin Na, Nash Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, and his style of choice being the latter. Weapons master. Frank Castle is the authority on modern warfare in the Marvel Universe. The Punisher is the recipient of multidisciplinary military knowledge from the United States Armed Forces. Thanks to this and continued training, the Punisher is a master of many weapons, favouring daggers and long-range shooting weapons. And it says here that basically his ever-changing arsenal of weaponry includes pretty much every weapon of war ever invented. And as well, don't forget in one comic as well, they gave him War Machine armour.
Holy shit.
Blade's weapon training. Castle has extensive knowledge of the blade. He doesn't say that, but that's how I'm wording it. So you know what? Frank Castle, huge weeb confirmed. He says that he tends to carry with him up to 3 or 4 different types of edged weapons. He's also a master marksman. He is a sharpshooter and exceptional marksman with many types of firearms, often being depicted as ambidextrous and rarely missing his target. Trained as an elite sniper, he is skilled enough to hit a target from 4 kilometers away. So as long as you are within 4 kilometers of Frank Castle, you're not safe. Interrogation master. Do you really need to be an interrogation master when you're the Punisher? I reckon just when criminals know they're caught by the Punisher, they just spill their guts in the hope he'll shoot them straight away. So Castle uses his skills at interrogation to get any information he wants from people through creative uses of torture such as waterboarding, electrocution, suffocation, sleep deprivation and starvation. Extensive special operations training. As part of his Marine Force recon training, Castle completed the US Navy SEALs, the Underwater Demolition Team and Long Range Patrol training, as well as EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal training, and graduated from the Army Rangers School, completed the US Army's Airborne School, graduated the US Army Special Forces Qualification Course, and the Long Range Recon Patrol training course. He has also taken part in cross-training with the Australian Special Air Service Regiment, and he's also qualified as a halo jumper. So high altitude, low opening.
So almost any form of like military training you can think of, Frank's just, done it.
And he's worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. and he has War Machine armour. Master Tactician. Armed solely with conventional weaponry and motivated by, and I quote, a fanatical hatred of crime. The Punisher has single-handedly incapacitated up to a dozen well-armed and experienced opponents in a single encounter and escaped uninjured. Indomitable will. Frank has complete control of his mind and consciousness, providing a strong resistance against telepathic powers that are used against him. When Letha tries to control Frank's mind, he scoffs at their attempts, saying it doesn't feel different from any other day.
Oh, no.
That's such a good line. There's also as well one comic where they use, I think, penance stare is used on him by Ghost Rider, and it doesn't work. And Ghost Rider's like, what the fuck? And Frank Castle goes, but I don't feel sorry for anything I've done. It only works if you feel even the slightest hint of remorse, which I don't. And Ghost Rider's like, shit, I better not mess with this dude.
Fucking fair enough then.
Doesn't work. How can it work if he doesn't care? Strength level. The Punisher's body functions at the peak of human conditioning, granting him peak human strength. Black Widow, a Russian super soldier, has even stated that Frank was stronger than herself. He can press lift twice his own body weight, or about 550 pounds, and he engaged in a brutal regimen of calisthenics, kata and firing range practices daily, maintaining his combat skills, and he does not drink alcohol or do drugs. And then we have just here weaknesses. If you can believe it, he does have some. Castle is susceptible to any physical injury and disease as any normal human, often having to rely more on strategy than strength when up against a superhuman opponent. However, different characters such as Nick Fury have commented on how extraordinarily high his pain tolerance is. And it says here that Frank does not even take over-the-counter painkillers, believing that their benefit of dulling pain isn't worth the side effects of drowsiness or slow reflexes.
I really appreciate that what as his weakness is, he's not a superhuman, okay?
But he still shoots people. And then we have paraphernalia, equipment. Punisher's equipment. In the vast majority of cases, Castle utilises a wide variety of modern military equipment that is specifically curtailed to each situation as needed. So he has everything he needs. Like, he has like the battle van, if you can believe it's called that, which is just full of guns. Punisher's clothing. Castle most often chooses not to wear any sort of costume beyond a black shirt with a white skull splashed across his front. His other clothing normally consists of combat boots, blazers and leather jackets. Bulletproof vests, body armour and black battle dress uniforms and camouflage outfits are worn for the sake of protection. His body armour protects him from most gunfire, though he can still suffer concussive injury or penetration from sufficiently powerful or repeated impacts. In regards to early costumes, each tooth of the skull was actually a spare magazine. And as well, the skull is used for intimidation and to draw fire towards the most armoured part of his body. Because people instinctively shoot at the big white glowing target in the dark, and that's like, you know, where the most armour is.
Yeah.
And it says here that the Punisher's arsenal is basically every weapon imaginable, and then the War Machine armour that he stole from a US Marine Corps storage warehouse. And then Lucas, would you like to just cover, do you want notes or trivia?
Let's just go with some trivia.
Okay. Frank used to have a guard dog named Max, whom he saved from animal poachers. Max was shot by the Kingpin's Lieutenant George, and Frank had to put Max down himself with a knife. Oh, man.
Oh,
what?
No.
Why would they put that? Like, Frank can't even get a fucking dog without it getting shot. The demon Olivier claimed that the skull icon that Castle often wears on his body armour is based off of his own face due to their connection. So a demon saw Frank Castle like, that's fucking sick, he's got my merch, I love it. Frank hates his alternate future counterpart known as the Rider due to the Rider not preventing the death of their family. However, the Rider had tried to do just that, but Uatu the Watcher used the Infinity Gauntlet to resurrect the Syndicate members and negate the Rider's interference. So I think the Rider is where it's a future version of Frank Castle that becomes Ghost Rider. And even when he has the powers of Ghost Rider, he can't save his fucking family.